Who amongst us has not been caught in a situation like this when you're just like, oh, I just want this USB flash drive from my friend. Oops, it has classified intel.
For all the family members gathered here, it's relief.
Let's go, Turkey mentioned. Also, Paul Whelan, 100p was a spy, and not even a good one at that. So make no mistake on that. Like Evan Greer, perfectly valid, right? Like Evan Greer, perfectly valid to be released. Like it was ridiculous that he was even fucking arrested to begin with. Classic fucking Russian bullshit, okay? Classic Russian government bullshit. Paul Whelan, on the other hand, straight up a spy. It is so funny that people were just like, oh, you don't understand. That man is a passport enthusiast, okay? That's why he had like 8 passports on him. Like, no, he was a spy. He was not even a good spy, for the record. Like, the fuck out of here, dude. Yeah, he was caught red-handed with defense intel and classified documents. He was like, oh, I'm just actually simply going to my friend's wedding, and we're enthusiasts of classified intelligence. Yeah, but Evan, ridiculous. Evan was like a Brittany Griner type situation, straight up. Like he got locked away specifically for politics, right? Like they locked his ass up because he was a journalist reporting on the fucking news in Russia. Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. Classic fucking bullshit. Okay? Didn't he buy a flash drive from an FSB agent? Yes.
Friends and colleagues all across the country who've been praying for this day for a long time. The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined the difficult, complex negotiations at my request, and I personally thank them all again. And I've thanked them personally.
The Paul Whelan, dude, honestly, the Paul Whelan story is so funny. Nah, bro, he was just going to a wedding and suddenly someone throw those things onto his lap. That's how things work in Russia. Like how you throw the top of the hour ad break in our face. Bro, I thought we were vibing. I thought you were making a funny joke.
Why do you do this to me? Why must you do this to me? Lol, do it a wholesome moment of the time and then just dash them. It's fucked. It's fucked to do that. It's fucked to do that shit. Okay? Anyway, here's the 3-minute ad break now. You can avoid seeing those ads as long as you subscribe for $5 or for free.
Bro went into it full chest too, thinking it was a joke. 10-10 get played, nerd. Yeah, I mean, it was funny. Not a fan of gender binary. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs.
Thank them again. All told, Russia has released 16 prisoners. 8 Russians who are being held in the West will be sent home as well. These 16 prisoners from Russia that Russia has released include 4 Americans, 5 Germans, 7 Russian citizens who are political prisoners in their own country. One of those Russians runs a human rights organization, Memorial, which won a Nobel Prize in 2022. Putin threw him in prison for voicing opposition to the war in Ukraine. 4 others work with...
Bro, they should release that Twitch streamer. Holy shit. There was literally a Twitch streamer that's like talking about Bucha that got fucking got. Did they release her? There was a Russian Twitch streamer that literally got fucking arrested and put in prison for talking about what Russia was doing in Bucha. It's crazy shit. Yeah, I mean, this is like one of the million different fucking reasons why I'm not like, I never push Z and regularly shit on Vladimir Putin, and am also genuinely afraid of like going to a country like Russia in general. But like it's not, America's involvement in Ukraine aside, Ukraine is absolutely in the right for wanting to rid its nation state of this invasion. But yeah, here it is. The Moscow Times, Russian truth streamer jailed 55 years for the Bucha testimonies. Like this is, or not 55, 5.5 years. This is completely unacceptable. Okay, ridiculous. Moscow court on Wednesday sentenced Twitch streamer Anna Bazutova to 5.5 years in prison for live streaming witness testimony about alleged Russian atrocities in the Ukrainian city of Bucha. It's fucked up, it's disgusting and vile. The 30-year-old Bazutova, speaking for the Glass Defenders Box, said in reaction to the ruling against her. The Ostankino District Court in northern Moscow found the streamer guilty of spreading fake information about the Russian army on her Twitch channel. This is a harsh sentence. We will appeal, Bazutova's lawyer, Andrei Nevrev, said. Kiev accuses the Russian military of carrying out a massacre of civilians in Bucha during its retreat in spring 2022. Moscow rejects these allegations and claims the killings were staged by the West. Let's get back to the story.
With Alexei Navalny, political opposition leader who died in Russia prison this year. Now they can live safely abroad and continue their work of advocating for democracy if they so choose. This deal would not have been made possible without our allies. Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Norway, and Turkey, they all stepped up and they stood with us. They stood with us. And they made bold and brave decisions, released prisoners being held in their countries who are justifiably being held, and provided logistical support to get the Americans home. So for anyone who questions...
Masadayız. 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 Masa biziz. Masa biziz amına koyayım. Masa biziz. You see that? He said Turkey, bro. The world trembles at the mention, the mere mention of the word Slovenia. No. The word trembles at the mere thought of how much Turkey participated in this. Do you understand? He said it multiple times now. He said it multiple fucking times, bro. He said, Turkey, we couldn't have done it without you. I'll take it. I'll take it. That's right. That's the motherfucking leader of the free world, bro. Put some respect on it. Meanwhile, Israel's like, get Turkey out of NATO. Shut the fuck up, bitch. I don't hear your word. I don't hear your name being mentioned in this process. All I hear is Turkey, Turkey, Turkey. Put us back on the F-35 program. Fuck it, dude.
Allies matter. They do. They matter. And today is a powerful example of why it's vital to have friends in this world. Friends you can trust, work with, and depend upon.
That's right, baby. That's right. Benden kırkımız. Benden kırkımız. Çağlardan çağlara. Yürü 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 yolumuz uzun. This is an unimaginably racist, ultra-nationalist song, but it kind of goes hard. Oh, the greatest of wolves, baby. Turkish ultranationalism is so fucking funny to me because it's like, bro, it's basically borderline furry adjacent, and you're talking about how the pan-Turkic race is like, the pan-Turkic race is so supreme that 40 Turks are worth the entirety of China. And it's just like, it's silly. You know what I mean? It's like watching the fucking Indian fascists like do workouts where they do like jump rope and shit. It has that same energy. Even though they're, you know, aggressive, violent, awful in general, but düşmanlarım kahrolsun. Okay. All right.
Especially in matters of great consequence and sensitivity like this. Our alliances make our people safer. And we began to see that again today. Let me say this. It says a lot about the United States that we work relentlessly to free Americans who are unjustly held around the world. It also says a lot about us that this deal includes the release of Russian political prisoners. They stood up for democracy and human rights. Their own leaders threw them in prison. The United States helped secure their release as well. That's who we are in the United States. We stand for freedom, for liberty, for justice, not only for our own people, but for others as well. And that's why all Americans can take pride in what we've achieved today. I want to thank everyone in my administration who helped make this happen. Our work did not start just on day one. It started before day one. During the transition, I instructed our national security team to dig into all the cases of hostages being wrongfully detained, which were inherently, well, we inherited them from the prior administration. I wanted to make sure we hit the ground running, and we did. As of today, my administration has brought home over 70 Americans who were wrongfully detained and held hostage abroad, many since before I took office. Additionally, I issued an executive order in 2022 authorizing penalties like sanctions and travel bans on those who hold Americans against their will. And my State Department has introduced new warnings for Americans about the risk of being wrongfully detained by a foreign government. Deals like this one come with tough calls, and there are never any guarantees. But there's nothing that matters more to me than protecting Americans at home and abroad. And so we'll continue to work for the release of all wrongfully detained Americans around the world. Let me end where I began, with Paul, Evan, and also Vladimir and their families. They never gave up hope. We can't imagine what they've been through, all of you. Matter of fact, this lady right here, I think, was living in the Oval Office with us for a while. All kidding aside, can't imagine their joy.
I mean, fuck it, even if they're Israeli, actually, there's like a shit ton of American-Israeli dual citizens that are still fucking apprehended. And this dumb fuck can't even put together a goddamn ceasefire and hostage release program because our unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East has decided that they're going to be dog walking us in broad daylight publicly.
What did you say to them on the phone, sir? What did you say when they answered the phone on the other side?
I said, welcome almost home.
How do you keep countries, these so-called abductor states, from simply taking more Americans in order to get more of their prisoners home? How do you end these perverse incentives, sir?
Or advising people not to go certain places.
Bro, the American media is so insane. Come on, man. This is like, this is a good thing, man. I said this with Brittany Griner. Like how fucking freak-like are you? You're literally staring at the hostage families and being like, hey, the president, you're just giving a perverse incentive for these countries to capture more American citizens because you will inevitably release, you know, Russian prisoners at their behest. It's like, bro, their fucking families are right there, bro. Have some decency, dude. What the fuck? That's insane. Like, that's insane. It's a good thing. It is always objectively a good thing to release hostages, okay? What the fuck? You are one boring streamer, you. Good one.
Tell them what's at risk, what's at stake.
Mr. President, where are you at these negotiations, and can you speak to the complexity of working with 6 countries to secure these releases?
Well, look,
Turkey made it
I'm not
easy.
going to take
Say
the time now, but I'll do this later in the
Say
week.
it. Turkey made that shit easy as hell.
I particularly owe a great sense of gratitude to the Chancellor. The demands they're making of me required me to get some significant concessions from Germany, which they originally concluded they could not do because of the person in question. But everybody stepped up. Poland stepped up. Slovenia stepped up. Turkey stepped up.
Yep.
And it matters to have relationships. It really does.
Turkey
These
stepped
things
up.
matter. Pardon me?
Could this improve relations with Russia? Is there any avenue for that after this prisoner exchange deal?
Not a bad question, a good question. Why is that a good question? Because up until this moment, the posturing from our State Department has been no talks with Russia whatsoever. That's unacceptable. We can't even talk to them. You have to. That's it. You have to get together, China, Russia, Ukraine, and all of Ukraine's allies at the table in order to put together a ceasefire that will be acceptable by every party in an effort to avoid further death. That's it. And the American government has kept saying like, nah, we can't talk to them. 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 And it's actually been genuinely bad. They have to do that. So I think that's a good question.
As my sister might say, your lips to God's ears, man.
Did you ever speak with Vladimir Putin about this, or would you be willing to speak with Putin now directly?
I don't need to speak with Putin. Anyway.
How did you weigh that decision?
Bro, you are the leader of the free world, dog. What are we talking about? Like, dude, Nixon's administration normalized relations with China. Like, every American president has at some point communicated with the USSR. What are we doing? Like, are you a fucking child? What is this? I hate this narrative, man. No, it's not Chad to be like, oh, I don't need to speak with him. No, it's lame as fuck, dude. You have to do diplomacy. You have to do diplomacy.
Letting somebody out who sounds like got away with murder.
I got home innocent people. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Are you speaking with Erdogan or any of the leaders about this?
Say that again?
Are you speaking with President Erdogan or other leaders about this?
Yes, I've spoken to all the leaders about this.
What did you say? How do you
And
feel
by the way,
about it?
as a father, look, you heard me say this before. I mean it. My dad had a simple proposition. Family is the beginning, the middle, and the end. Blood of my blood, bone of my bone. I can think of nothing more consequential. I mean it sincerely. And having lost family, not a different way, and not knowing what's happening, their circumstance, whether accidental, whether health, it matters.
Mr. President, what did Germany ask for in response for their cooperation?
Nothing.
President Biden.
What did Chancellor Scholz say?
President Trump has said repeatedly that he could have gotten the hostages out without giving anything in exchange. What do you say to that? What do you say to President Trump now, former president?
Why didn't he do it when he was president?
Sir, what did Chancellor Scholz?
Good line, actually. Trump, as expected, won't take a moment to praise the return of the hostages. Instead, he suggests Biden got fleeced. Of course, he's going to say that. So when are they going to release the details of the prisoner swap with Russia? How many people do we get versus them? Are we also paying them cash? Are they giving us cash? Please withdraw that question because I'm sure the answer is no. Are we releasing murderers, killers, or thugs? Just curious. Oh, ew. He said just curious. Oh, God. Oh, God. Just curious because we never make good deals at anything, but especially hostage swaps. Our negotiators are always an embarrassment to us. I got back many hostages and gave the opposing country nothing and never any cash. To do so is a bad precedent for the future. That's the way it should be, or the situation will get worse and worse. They're extorting the United States of America and they're calling the trade complex. That's so nobody can figure out how bad it is.
This is an ABC News special report.
I'm Wade Johnson in New York.
Spies and one assassin. Krasikov was convicted by a German court in 2019, killing of Zelim Khan Tornike Kongoshvili, an ethnic Chechen of Georgian nationality, in a Berlin park. Oh, they did. They got Germany to fucking release actual straight up murderers, huh? What a historic prisoner swap means for Vladimir Putin's Russia. Damn. Okay, no. Damn. No way. I'm gonna. Damn.
Coming back on the air with breaking news, a multinational prisoner exchange involving the U.S. and Russia, one of the largest prisoner swaps since the end of the Cold War. We're talking about decades here. ABC News has learned former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan and Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich are being released. Just 2 weeks ago, Gershkovich was sentenced to 16 years in prison for espionage during what the U.S. called a sham trial. You'll remember Whelan was also convicted of spying, which he has strongly denied. He was arrested in December of 2018.
Yeah, that motherfucker was a spy. That motherfucker was a spy, 100%. And not even a good one, too. He was just not even a good-ass spy. He was a bad spy, bro. The conditions of his release, or the conditions of his capture, straight up bad spy. Like, that's a bad trade in general. Obviously, a lot of people are going to say, like, no, Brittany Griner can dunk. Like, she's actually a fucking pretty solid player overall in the WNBA. Whereas, like, obviously, in exchange for Brittany Griner, America had to release the Lord of War. But, like, technically in that situation, the Lord of War was just a dude who we captured for competing with us in terms of arms sales, like the Merchant of Death. Like, Victor Boot wasn't kidnapped for, like, doing shit that we deemed illegal. He was kidnapped for doing the same shit that we're doing, but, like, out competing us, right? That was ultimately a good trade in general, I think. But in this situation, like, we're not even getting a good spy back. You know what I mean? We're getting, like, a bad spy. Evan, totally valid, totally just. You know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous that he was fucking kidnapped and was a political prisoner. Like, I'm not even talking about his, like, I don't know, skills in reporting or whatever. But, like, Paul Whelan is a bad spy. Like, he's not a good spy. He's a bad spy. And we're, like, releasing a fucking killer straight up like a hardcore. Ah! Like, look at that face. I'm just saying, like, probably not worth, but hey, whatever.
The U.S. has tried to include him in other prisoner swaps, including the release of WNBA star Brittany Griner, only to be rejected by Moscow. President Biden has made winning the release of detained Americans in Russia a top priority since taking office. And again, these details just coming in. Let's get right to ABC's chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce. We know it's a fluid situation, Mary, but what are you learning now?
Well, Whit, this is the largest and most complex prisoner exchange since the end of the Cold War. This has taken months of detailed, painstaking negotiations. The president himself deeply involved in these conversations. We are told that he has been monitoring this in near real time throughout this morning. I
love that they never talk about Paul Whelan's, like, background at all. Like, what did he do, bro? Because, like, with Evan Gershkovich, it's, like, pretty obvious what happened. Evan is a Wall Street Journal reporter, and they literally kidnapped him. Paul Whelan, on the other hand, like, that was before the Ukraine stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was, pretty sure that was, like, way before the Ukraine stuff, actually.
I'm also told that the president this morning here in the Oval Office gathered the families of the Americans that are being released today. He wanted to give that news to them himself. They are, as you mentioned, of course, Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. He has been held since March of 2023. He was just sentenced last month to 16 years in a penal colony in that secret trial that had absolutely no public proof. Also, former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan, he has been held for 5.5 years, also on similar espionage charges that the U.S. and
no, there's not similar espionage charges, bro. It was a spot. Yo, I'm sorry, dude. Like, oh God, the media is so fucking lame. Like, no, he was definitely a spy, bro. Come on. Bro has 6 passports, dude. He had 6 passports. He got nabbed literally purchasing a fucking USB key with classified intel from an FSB guy. What do you mean? Don't you love going to Russia for a wedding that you're attending and you just get caught? You just get caught with a fucking USB that you try to purchase for cash. Russia said it caught James Bond on a spy mission. Okay, they literally, in reality, they abducted Mr. Bean on a holiday. Paul Whelan, a man of many passports. Yeah, he's also originally a Canadian. Whelan began visiting Russia while stationed in Iraq and returned frequently to tour the country. Paul Whelan even had a Russian social media account, VK, Russia's equivalent to Facebook. 2018, he was working in Novi, Michigan, as a director of global security for an automated parts supplier. But he said he returned to Moscow to help a friend with his wedding to a Russian woman. There are varying reports as to what happened on that fateful day on December 28, 2018. Many outstanding questions about the flash drive, Paul Whelan's Russian friends, and whether he will be allowed to serve his time in the U.S. Whelan told reporters of the espionage charge involved the accusation that he was working for the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency when he obtained a flash drive from a friend containing the names of Russian border guards. In his defense, he said he thought the flash drive contained holiday photos and he hadn't yet looked at it when he was ambushed by Moscow security services in his hotel room. Who amongst us has not been caught in a situation like this when you're just like, oh, I just want this USB flash drive from my friend. Oops, it has classified intel. Copium, Russian narrative is completely true. No, you're right. A guy who's working in the private sector as a security analyst, former Marine, with 6 passports, who was visiting his friend's wedding in Russia, that literally had an interaction with an FSB agent with cash on hand, was actually, it's just a Russian narrative. I don't understand why people like you try to make a big deal about things that every human being likes to do. Passport collection and collecting flash drives. I think you guys are being really silly. You're inflating his passport count like your haters blow up your house value. Bro, he has an Irish citizenship, Canadian, American. He has like 3 other, doesn't he? How many passports does he have? A British one. Also, this is the other reason why I know he was a spy. Okay? So he had a report where he talked to the BBC where he said he felt he was left behind by the US government. They've basically abandoned me here, he told BBC by phone. I'm extremely concerned. With each case, my case is going to the back of the line. They've kind of just left me in the dust. And at this point, this juncture is very concerning. Yeah, dude, because you're a fucking spy and you got. He told the BBC that his days are occupied stitching work overalls and hats in a prison factory. Huh. You are throwing shade at this man who was just collecting items for his Mission Impossible cosplay. Yeah, I just think it's, silly to act like he wasn't a spy. America did it. They got the trade off. They popped off with the fucking trade. But come on now.
Whelan and Gershkovich.
It's also really funny where people accuse me of believing the Russian framing on a situation when I literally talked about Evan Gershkovich being unjustly prosecuted in a sham trial and being kidnapped as a political pawn and a political prisoner moments prior to having this conversation about Paul Whelan. And also on top of that, I talked about the Twitch streamer, the Russian Twitch streamer who was arrested and is currently serving a 5.5-year prison sentence, and how fucking ridiculous that is. So clearly, it doesn't make sense that I'm just abiding by, weirdly, the Russian narrative on some things and not on others. It can't be something else. It can't be the fact that I think it's a really fishy situation with Paul Whelan.
Which have all fiercely denied. Also being released, Alsu Kurmasheva. She's a Russian-American journalist who has been held for nearly a year. And Vladimir Kara-Murza. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning Washington Post columnist, a prominent Kremlin critic. We are told all 4 of them are now making their way back home. All told, 16 individuals held in Russia will be freed, and 8 individuals held by the U.S., Germany, Norway, Slovenia, and Poland will also be returned to Russia. Turkey also playing a logistical role here. This is the culmination, we are told, of many complex rounds of negotiations. This ultimately went up to the president having detailed negotiations himself, leader to leader. It became very clear several months ago that Russia was not going to be willing to engage in any kind of prisoner exchange without the release, excuse me one here as I read through my notes, without the release of Vadim Krasikov. He, of course, is a Russian operative, a convicted murderer, and he is being held, or was being held in...
Bro, he was an assassin. He was literally a straight up FSB hitman. That's it. That's what he was. the Kremlin narrative. Wait, what did the liberals think about that? Do they think he was also... Are the liberals coping on that and being like, no, he's actually unjustly prosecuted. He's not even a hitman?
Germany. That meant that the president had to get on the phone and actually reach out to the German chancellor. The president's so involved, we are told, that he was actually making calls on this in the hour before he decided to drop out of the presidential race. And I do want to let you know one other update that was just handed to me here. The president is going to be coming before cameras in a little over 20 minutes at noon to deliver remarks on the freeing of the Americans detained in Russia.
All right, Mary Bruce, stand by for us. We know those details still coming in right now. And you mentioned Turkey. Let's go ahead. I believe we have a shot from the airport in Ankara. We don't have that anymore, but we know that intelligence agency there, officials were telling us that they played a coordinating role between the countries and that likely that tarmac at the airport was a place where this prisoner swap was going to happen. Again, we had some pictures coming in. We're going to stay on top of that. Let's bring in Tom Sufi-Burrage, who's been following the developments overseas. And Tom, Mary mentioned Vadim Krasikov. Of course, he was serving that life sentence in Germany for gunning down a Kremlin opponent in Berlin. That was back in 2019. Now, Putin himself, through a series of a number of interviews, had suggested that any prisoner swap needed to include him. What more are you learning?
Yeah, no, we know Vadim Krasikov was absolutely key to this deal taking place. Vladimir Putin saying so himself, and U.S. officials confirming that. Vadim Krasikov, as you say...
I'm going to mention the most boring-ass place I've ever been to. Sorry, Haas. Bro, I do not disagree with you at all. What is this? Holy shit, this is huge. Russian libs on train started reporting on these guys getting lost in the system, shipped off from their designated camps without informing their lawyers or families. That could have meant exchange for a Navalny scenario. Legit stoked it wasn't the latter. I think it's kind of wild that like the American government is releasing Russian nationals from Russian prison. Like, that's so wild, bro. Like, we're playing on their turf at this point. We're like, hey, man, you know, we got a bunch of Americans out, but like, can you get some of these Russians out too?
Gunned down a Chechen dissident in a park just over there here in Berlin 5 years ago. He was serving a life sentence here in a German prison. And he is one of the key people to be returned to Russia. Also an individual from Norway, also from an individual from Poland, and critically and fascinatingly, a Russian couple being held in Slovenia. Yesterday, all of a sudden, that couple pleading guilty to espionage charges in a Slovenian court. According to Slovenian officials, they were leading a double life with an Argentinian fake identity. Their kids also returned in this prisoner swap.
It's so funny. Look at the way they're covering. Look at the way they cover the Russian spies who are objectively spies versus American spy Paul Whelan. Just a regular old passport enthusiast from Canada, originally in the Marine Corps, a former Marine, was arrested for visiting his friend's wedding. It's like the double standard is so fucking glaring. Come on, dude.
All right, Tom, thank you. Let's bring in Martha Raddatz, our chief global affairs correspondent, who's joining us on the phone right now. And Martha, what does this say, the fact that they
were my neighbors in Slovenia? I'm not even joking. Whoa, that's crazy. Were they chill?
U.S. and Russia can negotiate successfully under difficult terms like this?
Well, I think, first of all, this is very separate from any relationship we have with Russia. Things are obviously still incredibly tense because of Ukraine especially, but this is an incredibly good sign that they can still cooperate on matters like this.
Wasn't there a report where Trump didn't want to make a deal to get him for that very reason, that he thought he sucked at spying? I don't remember that, but it could be. That could be a very real Trump thing. Like, that literally, that sounds so much like Trump, bro. That sounds so much like Donald Trump. But also, it could just simply mean, it could simply be a bit that I did.
What I think one question is why Putin did this now. He obviously felt very strongly about getting Krasnikov back, especially the assassin. And I think when you go into that kind of job in Russia, you are almost promised that they will do everything possible to get you out, and they can certainly recruit more after that. But as we know, Joe Biden has been working on this for a very long time, and his team, to try to get Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan back. The families have also been so critical and so key in all of this. They did not let anyone forget that Evan and Paul and the others, and there was always talk of the others. We want everyone released, possibly, but
ain't nobody gave a fuck about Paul, dude. Nobody was talking about Paul. Everybody was talking about Evan, which makes sense because it was unjust.
The families and the Wall Street Journal, certainly for Evan, just kept the focus on these prisoners and said they would do absolutely anything so people did not forget that they were held so long. So the families certainly celebrating this morning the soon-to-be arrival of their family members with.
Yeah, just an agonizing wait for these families as these negotiations played out behind the scenes. Martha, thank you. Let's go back to Mary Bruce at the White House as you're getting more detail, because, Mary, you talked about how President Biden himself had been involved. These negotiations were going on behind the scenes. Obviously, there was that high-profile prisoner swap with Brittany Griner a while back. And then there was a setback after the death of Alexei Navalny. There was some question as to whether he could be involved in a swap going forward. What else can you tell us about how we got to this point today and the president's involvement?
Well, what we are actually now hearing from the president, he has just put out a paper statement saying the deal that secured their freedom was a feat of diplomacy. He said some of these men and women have been unjustly held for years, saying all have endured unimaginable suffering and uncertainty. The president saying today.
Paul watching this in tears right now. That's the other thing. Now we know why Navalny mysteriously died, for the record. Because, like, it didn't make any sense why he was just, like, murked out of nowhere in the middle of, like in an upcoming election and shit. It's not like he had any juice. Like, now we know why he was fucking murked. I think they just literally were like, yeah, the hostage negotiations are happening. They're going to want to get Navalny out. We don't want that to happen, so we're just going to deal with it ourselves. And they just cooked his ass. This, in my opinion, this literally shows, like, because it didn't make any sense at the time, like, why Putin would do this, even though it was definitely something that he did. Now it makes a lot more sense why he did it, because he didn't want him. He didn't want him to be a bargaining chip in the negotiations process, which is still, like, kind of wild. I guess he dude, the U.S. killed him on accident? No, it wasn't the United States. Get out of here, dude. Come on. Do you not like onions? No, I love onions. I took onions from a different package and put it in this, so I have more onions in my salad. I don't think that the U.S. has, like, pull like that they could just, like, assassinate a liberal, possibly CIA operative in a fucking Russian prison in the middle of nowhere.
Their agony is over. He goes on to thank all of the allies who were involved in this, saying this is a powerful example of how vital it is to have friends in the world who you can trust and depend on. And then he goes on with a strong message to those who are still being wrongfully detained, saying, let me be clear, I will not stop working until every American wrongfully detained or held hostage around the world is reunited with their family. He says, even as we are now celebrating the return of these Americans, he says that his message to all of those still being detained and their families, we see you. We are with you.
Mary Bruce and our entire team, thank you. Once again, President Biden expected to make some remarks on this.
It is kind of funny. I mean, this would be like, there's no equivalency because, like, the January 6ers actually did some fucked up shit. But it would be like if Putin demanded Biden release the January 6th political prisoners. Oh my God, why doesn't Trump say that? Oh my God. Donald Trump should say that. That's such a good attack line to, like, sully this entire deal, to be like, why the fuck are you releasing a guy who murked someone in broad daylight, okay, in the middle of a fucking German street? And what do you get in return? You get Putin to release fucking Russian nationals from prison. The fuck kind of business does that have to do with you? And then he should say, I never released Paul Whelan because he was a bad spy. Because he was a bad spy, worst of all. And then he should tie that up to like, how about Biden release the political prisoners that are American, in all caps, in the United States of America? That's right, I'm talking about the January 6th prisoners that are unjustly serving sentences. They saw sham trials like the sham trial that I saw. But the American people are waking up.